Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this episode of The Couch Trip, Therapy for Everyday Life. You are in for a treat. Our psychological thought leader extraordinaire, Eddie Reece, is going to be talking for the next 30 minutes or so about what it means to live inside out, what it means to have a kindness dialogue with yourself or someone else, how to make sure you're living your truth so you can be your best self, either by yourself, with a partner, or in any group, whether that's sports, politics, religion, or work. This episode is going to have some really inspiring wisdom nuggets throughout. There's going to be a couple quotes I can't wait to share on social media. Strap it in. You're in for another couch trip. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, last time we spoke, we were discussing fantasy. Everything from Santa Claus to groupthink, tribalism, to the difference between humanity and happiness. So what we're going to talk about today, as we've already discussed what it means to live either detached from logical reasoning and reality in a fantastical place, and how that's essential as a 5 or 6 year old. And then as we grow, we develop more cognitive ability, and that's normal. We also discussed a little bit of how there is no perfect and there is no expectation of perfect. And to the degree we're able to really own who we are and our feelings and our humanity, that's when we truly can experience joy and not only be great for ourselves, but be great for another. What we're going to talk about today is a little bit of a pivot from how fantasy and shame and the masks we wear, so to speak, can affect us in a group environment, right? So we're going to go from one to many. This is a logical summation of our conversations of fantasy versus logical and cognitive reasoning. And so Eddie, kind of remembering where we left off based on that introduction, what do people face, whether it be through tribalism or groupthink or alliances, family, political, religion, what have you? How does this fantasy relate into the group setting?
Yeah, all right. That sounds like interesting conversation.
We'll make it that way.
And we'll do our best. Yeah.
So let's operate under the presumption that we have someone who has distanced themselves from reality. They're now not able to really discern the difference between the masks they wear, the fantasy, their inability to deal with their own imperfections, that terror of non-existence is now, they're cloaked with that. And all of a sudden they're exposed to, let's call them opportunities in group settings, whether it's positive or negative. I'm agnostic to that. That's for you to kind of speculate. But what is the potential threat to someone who hasn't firmly grasped a healthy vision of the difference between what could be and what just plain old isn't?
Okay. Yeah, what you're describing is pretty much everybody to some degree. There was a study quite a while ago that looked at optimism, pessimism. In order to be an optimist, you have to distance yourself from reality to some degree. And I don't remember if a study said this or I made it up, but that part makes sense to me. A pessimist is also distant from reality on the other side. And then I consider myself a realist. I do my best to deal with the best possible idea of what reality is. Good mental emotional health is reality at all costs. So a quick answer to your question is what happens is the further away from reality you are, the more mental and emotional problems you're going to have. Because the fantasy that you have, you can't make it work because you're trying to do something impossible. And you don't have any control over it. So if you're in the fantasy world of my favorite team will win, guaranteed, I'm going to bet money on it. And the reality is they may or may not win. That's the reality. But your reality says they will win. And I'm so sure of my reality. Here's $1,000. I'll put it on it. And whether you win or lose that bet, it only reinforces your fantasy. Because now you won, so obviously you know what you're doing, and your fantasy is reality. So you'll do it again, and eventually you're going to lose. And if you get far enough into believing you got some sort of special power, you're going to bet the farm and lose it, which will, and this is a consequence of being too far out of reality. You're going to get slammed back into reality, whether you want to or not. That's usually called a midlife crisis. So that's kind of a quick and easy answer to your question. To look at it that way.
Yeah. So I'm reminded of, those that bet with their heart and not their head, don't bet for very long.
Yeah. Ideally, you know how to use both. In some situations, it needs to be all heart. In some situations, all head. And then most situations, it's going to be some combination. And that's a reflection of good mental and emotional health, that you have enough awareness of heart and head. You have enough awareness of all the different competing desires, and know how to work those together toward consensus. So, yeah, it's this idea of what is the reality? How do I find that? How do I even know I'm there? And then if you want to talk to a philosopher about it, they may say there is no reality. Whatever you make up is your reality, which is kind of true. But with this ability to pull the camera back, so to speak, and look at the big picture and be aware of all the different moving parts, you can then get some better assessment rather than this narrow view of fantasy of, I know what I'm doing, get out of my way.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, you bring up a good point, which, it said perception is reality. And, I've also seen and heard recently the idea of personal reality, and how someone, to an individual, their personal reality. And I think it's intentional that sounds somewhat like personality, because that is through the prism in which they see everything, and whether or not they have a good alignment or adjustment or are making sense of that positivity, negativity, reality, that's what we describe as well adjusted. They're in tune with what the majority of us rational human beings, again, conjecture and speculation, judgment is cloaked in that statement. But yeah, ultimately, it's the major populace that determines whether or not someone is adjusted enough, which is kind of in and of itself a little dichotomous. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I keep hearing personality. Just made up a new word with your personal and reality. Yeah, there's this. I think where you might be going with this is the idea of, am I well adjusted? Am I, living in reality? Am I dealing with it directly? I don't think the group is the best judge of that, because the majority of the group's not dealing with reality very well. It's more of you and or some trusted advisors that'll tell you the truth. When folks are talking about moving into the dating world and say, well, here's kind of a way to do that. You spend time working out on paper. Here's the things I'm looking for in a relationship and a person. And here's the things that are my deal breakers. And you share this list with your trusted advisors. So when you meet somebody and there's mutual chemistry, meaning there's a desire to spend more time together, you take that person out for a gathering with your trusted advisors. And generally within a few minutes, they'll tell you whether this is worthwhile or not. Because they're going to do that anyway. If you're just in a normal kind of setting, as soon as the two of you leave, they're going to go, I give it 3 months. And the people who know you well are always going to be a better judge of whether you should be in that relationship or not than you. Always. It's just that they won't tell you, which is just awful. And I think they should. And then, I tell the person who's moving into the dating world, I go, whatever your trusted advisors tell you to do, you have to do it. That's the agreement you make with them. And you're probably not going to want to if they say, no, you need to get out of it. So that's one way to get a grip on reality. And that involves this process we've been talking about. If I'm the person going out to date, I have to have enough self-awareness to realize that I cannot be a good judge of whether to pursue this relationship or not. And there's not a whole lot of people who will ever say that and believe it. So you have to have that awareness, and then you act on that awareness and go, since I'm not a good judge, I know you guys are, because I'm a great judge of the relationship you get in. I'm going to right every time. Yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts of balancing a group think and your own personal reality of that. You get the people that you trust. You wouldn't go post it on social media and go, "Hey, do you think this is going to work out?"
Well, there's an interesting. You're touching on something pretty interesting there, which is yes, I think we can and likely should rely on our board of advisors when making those relationships decisions, because they can take emotion out of it and they can look at compatibility and they can look at maybe see things that we don't see, because when we're new in a relationship, we're optimistic. Probably, maybe we're seeing things through rose-colored glasses a little bit.
Lust, which means you're full of hormones and neurotransmitters that are wonderful. I mean, it's just one of the best drugs in the world.
And maybe what we're looking for, again, if we're honest with ourselves, and you talk about self-awareness and you touched on in past episodes, vulnerability and transparency, but how forthright are we with our motivations when we're dating? Am I looking for companionship? Am I looking for acceptance? Am I looking for sex? Am I looking for, someone to watch a movie with, someone who's going to tell me I'm right all the time? Like, there are shallow, maybe pleasure centers all over our bodies and brains that can be excited or activated by certain people that we may not have a future, so to speak, with. But, you've heard the statement, I'm not looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right. I'm looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right now.
Yeah, sure. And so, yeah, there's an infinite number of reasons to go on a date, if you want to call it that. And again, we're back to what's reality. If I go, people say, well, I want to get married. And I go, so you're telling me you want to have a wedding? And they're like, I said, you didn't say I want to be married. That's a whole different ballgame. Getting married's a few hours out of your day. Being married That's relentless. That's there every day and every night. Some comedians say, he goes, yeah, I'm married. It's relentless. It's there every morning when I wake up, and it's there every night when I go to bed. So get in the reality of what you're saying, which means listen to yourself. When I go, so you want to have a wedding, what I'm teaching them is how to listen to what they're saying. Because the way our brains work, if you go around saying, I want to get married, that produces a picture in your mind of a wedding. It doesn't produce a picture of being married. I had a one frame cartoon for a long time. It's this couple sitting at a table. And the guy says, you want to get married and spend the rest of our lives watching TV on the couch? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That would be a good question, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch TV, and watch my TV shows. And, you want to fit into my day-to-day life. And do I want to fit into your day-to-day life? Does that appeal to me? You can start right there. You can't show anybody that, and you can't see anybody's day-to-day life until the lust is out of the way.
So, getting back to the group or the the multiple people within a setting, obviously a relationship is the smallest of groups, which is two people, and the whether adjusted or maladjusted. When we get into larger settings, I feel like from a layperson that the threat is this gullibility, this easily manipulated kind of a thing, that would be the first potential threat of not having kind of my feet on the ground of reality and self. Am I right?
Yeah, but it's the problem you're looking at is the same whether there's two people or 2 million. Because now we're back to what we mentioned in the first episode of you're being driven by your shame. If I have enough shame in me, it doesn't take much. I know you don't really want anything to do with who I really am because I don't want anything to do with them. So I have to be this other person like we talked about. And I have to belong to something. So that drives us in a large percentage of our reasoning to go get in a long-term relationship. I want long-term. I want till death because then I will be okay for the rest of my life if I can find that. So you're destined to fail. And so the same thing is I need to belong and have you accept this image that I've created of myself. So I'll go to this school or live in this city and I'll pick this team to root for. And then I will be of one mind with these people and I'm an accepted part of it, which means I'm going to have to kind of go along with the group. So if this is the team that I've chosen, then I'm going to have to hate that team. I can't admire that team. That won't work because they're going to get rid of me. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. It's the same thing with the lifelong partner you've picked. I can't say that, do that. They're going to get rid of me. So I can't be myself. I can't live in my reality. So therefore, I'm always going to have a mental, emotional kind of struggle with, I want to say that. I want to say, gosh, that team played really well today, but that's not going to work. I want to tell my lifelong partner, no, I don't want anything to do with that. Or, no, I don't want you participating in that. But if that means, quote, I'm out, then now I've got this internal battle of trying to live in a reality or trying to buy the fantasy, the story of our relationship, whether it's a group or one person or a few.
So it begs the question, Eddie, what can we do? How do we I'm sitting I love listening to you, and I'm sitting here as you're talking, and I'm looking introspectively, and I'm thinking, I think I'm pretty normal. I think I'm pretty
Well,
adjusted,
if
but
you're if
then
you're
I'm like, how do I
normal,
know?
well, if you're normal, and that's what my clients say, I just want to be normal. I don't know you don't. The reason you're on my couch is because you're normal. Normal means the average. And the average in a sick society is sick.
Hmm.
The average in our culture of mental and emotional health is not good at all. The average in self awareness and the ability to think critically and the ability to really know who you are and what works for you and doesn't work for you, and the ability to live that is not very good. So, no, you don't want to be normal. If therapy works for you, you will become abnormal. You will get away from the norm.
Well said.
So, yeah, if you're normal, man, let me recommend somebody for you to sit with.
Well, okay, so there's some brilliance right there. There's all right, everybody, clean out yours. Q-tip moment. Okay, Eddie's dropping some truth nuggets. So again, for those of us that want to take a proactive approach to our mental and emotional health, we want to feel as if we have transcended the norm. We are now taking responsibility and accountability for our own wellness. We're going to affirm for ourselves that we are where our feet are, firmly entrenched in reality, which is going to make us the best version of ourselves, which is going to make us a great partner to someone. And
not who you're with, or maybe not what group you're running with right now. So if you're gay, but you're married to the opposite sex, and that's not you, but you're doing that so that you're accepted. Yeah, you're trying to be normal. Right? So you're going to have to be abnormal. So, boom, you have to say, here's who I really am, and then live that life.
and in that community, if we're talking about the gay community, you hear that live your truth.
Well, you can live in the heterosexual community with people who don't mind you're gay. They don't care. They're happy for you. You know, they don't think it's weird that you bring your boyfriend or your girlfriend, whatever, over. Yay, good to meet them all. You guys are great together.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're living from the inside out rather than the outside in. That's a pretty decent idea of what's my reality. Well, my reality has to come organically out of me. And in order for that to happen, I've got to do my best to kill off all the fantasies, all the stories I want to live to be okay, to cover my shame. I have to say, this is who I really am. So this is what I really do to feed myself. I can't do this anymore. It's not working for me anymore. Being normal isn't working for me anymore. And I really do think everybody struggles with that in a number of ways, shapes, and forms. And then it does show up in the group to where groups can have nothing to do with each other. So if I'm a fan of this team and you're a fan of that team, I can't like you other than maybe we hang out and I just give you grief about the team you like. You know, I mean,
Yeah. Well, here in Georgia, we can see.
Yeah.
Well, here,
Well, yeah, if you want to talk, college football, especially what I think of when I look at that.
well, think about it. I mean, we're seeing you in a neighborhood like I live and likely where you live. There's often a flag out in front of a front door of one house that might be for Alabama, it might be for Georgia, it might be for Georgia Tech or Auburn or what have you. And then every couple of years, we see those flags become yard signs for certain folks that want to advocate for their favorite political figure. So I think these teams that you speak of can certainly align us or divide us, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah, it's there's nothing inherently wrong with picking a side. What happens though is what drove us to pick that side. If we picked it because we're living outside in rather than inside out, it's going to be a problem because then the outside in way of picking a side says, I'm going to now blindly follow this. And so I'm not going to listen to anything that isn't this. And if you come from the inside out, you pick this side because it makes the most sense for your belief systems. And excuse me, you don't fully buy into the group think because you can listen to the other sides. You can watch your team play and lose because the other team just they were on, and you can admire the play and go, man, they tore us apart and they were playing great, you know. Instead of all of the stupid referee and that call, of course, man.
So I have a question for you. I want to really give the viewers and listeners something of a gift. So, Eddie, do me a favor and walk me through what some logical steps might be to help someone who wants to live more inside out.
It starts with awareness, and that involves listening. My client this morning did something that's common with every client I do, where they want to have less anxiety. So they have 3 sessions and they come back in and they go, well, I'm still really anxious. And I say, all right, I'm going to teach you how to listen to your unconscious. I'm still really anxious. After 3 sessions, I should be way less anxious by now. That's what still means. Because the way I want you to look at it is this is a part of you going, I'm still, but it's not really I'm still. This part's talking to this part who's anxious because this part's not anxious and is reality. So you're still anxious. So there's the shame factor happening. So that's how you become more aware. Wow, I'm beating myself up. I'm shaming myself. I'm not allowing myself to be anxious because this part, not I don't want to be anxious. This part doesn't want this part to be anxious. It gets in this part's way. And so it wants to eliminate it. And it's going to do that by shaming it. So now you have an awareness of what you're doing. In order to change that, you want to learn how to isolate these two parts for a while so that instead of this part saying, get over it, this part says, I'm really anxious. And this part learns to listen. So you're really anxious. And there's a listening technique that's been around forever. Active listening is usually what it's called. I've got my own little twist on it. I call it the kindness dialogue. You listen with kindness. You keep listening to the story. You keep listening to this part's reality. The world scares me. Virtually everything about it scares. Virtually everything I do has this element of anxiety, and I have to do everything I can to come up with the right thing to do so that nothing wrong happens. And I'm scared to death of making a mistake because then the bad thing happens. Well, if you hear all this, really hear it, your response is going to be, oh my God, what a horrible way to live. I hate that for you.
Oh, this has been awesome. What I heard you say, Eddie, is that, and I've said this before, but awareness preceding progress. So if someone is looking to live more intentionally inside out, they should, as Dr. Covey would say, seek first to understand. And in this case, oneself is the person needing to be understood.
Which really means hear well enough to very naturally be kind, compassionate in your response, which means you don't try to change because I'll teach you how to listen to your unconscious. Progress, awareness. So progress. Why do you want progress? So we can do a whole thing on progress is just worthless. Trying to make progress. Why are you trying to make progress? And it'll lead back to this very same thing because then I will be accepted. I'll be loved. I'll be cared about. People will like me. Then I don't have to deal with any of this crap that's inside of me I don't want to deal with. So awareness simply for awareness. This is what Eastern philosophy is all about. You practice meditation because that's what you do. You don't do it to reach some goal. You just do it.
The power of now.
Yeah, I want to be in reality. I don't want to buy all of these fantasies that have been programmed into me and then run off with them to where, I'm living a life that's not me.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Eddie, this was good. This was great. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you found some value in the conversation that you were able to share with us today, definitely hit the bell, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be alerted every time the Couch Trip launches a new episode. Contribute in the community. Give us your questions in the comments. We'd love your feedback. If we're touching on topics that are hitting home for you, it's likely because of the comments, the emails, the direct messages that Eddie and I have seen over the past weeks. So please let us know what you're thinking and let us know that what we can help you with. Full anonymity, if you'd like, through private direct messages. We just want to make sure that we're bringing value. This is the couch trip. This is therapy for everyday life. And it's informative. It's inspiring. It's fun at times. But really, it's all about taking you from where you are to where you want to be. And today's episode was all about living inside out and being where your feet are and having the self-affirming belief that you are living your truth and that you are true to who and what you are and stand for. And it sounds from Eddie's perspective that when that's the goal, true humanity and a new kind of happiness and joy is the result. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening and viewing The Couch Trip. I'm Bill Courtright with my great friend and psychological thought leader, Eddie Reece. We'll be coming with a new episode soon. We teased it a little bit. The kindness dialogue will no doubt be an episode that we can expound upon real soon. So, Eddie, any last words for the crew?
Just want to reiterate what you said about feedback. I mean, nothing would make me happier than for somebody to go, you said this, and I'm wondering this, and we can take some time in our episodes to answer those things and to speak with you directly. Because I guarantee you, whatever thing you want to know about or ask about, so do a lot of other people.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.